Joining us now is Kimberlee Guluzian, a forensic analyst and Cal State Long Beach professor. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me on the show. Good morning.
This is such a fascinating and strange case that's playing out. So originally officials said there was no foul play, but then they changed it to suspicious death investigation. Can you talk about maybe why there was this change and kind of what you're seeing from your viewpoint when it comes to this investigation?
Yes, so in my experience, what happens is the deputies will respond to the scene. They will typically call out crime scene investigators and detectives will arrive. And so they're looking for obvious signs of foul play, any weapon that may be present. And so once they did an assessment of the scene, they probably realized that there was nothing very obvious. So what they did is most agencies will treat a crime scene as it's a homicide until they can determine otherwise. Because we've got one chance at processing this crime scene. So we don't want to contaminate the crime scene by allowing, a lot of people into that crime scene, because we would potentially be searching for DNA that may be left behind. There could be shoe prints, like anything that's foreign to this residence that's not typically there. Fingerprints, and sometimes if it's, what we call like a whodunit homicide, we can process for fingerprints, in which that's like a 2-day process. So I think they're erring on the side of caution, which is very smart, and just processing the scene very thoroughly until they can rule anything out.
Absolutely. Okay, so detectives are now saying that the bodies had been there a while. I'd imagine they've started to decompose, or what would be the signs? How would they know this? Would they be able to tell how long they've been there, 2 days or 2 weeks?
Yes, there are variables that will impact that, but typically what occurs is decomposition, which is very different than mummification. Decomposition will almost begin immediately, and factors that can impact that would be the temperature, right? Environmental factors. So I did a little research, and it looks like over the last 3 weeks, it was low to mid 50s. That's not very warm. But depending on if the occupants of the home were running a heater, what happens is that will dry out the atmosphere inside the residence. And so mummification is actually when the body begins to dry out quicker than it does decomposition. So in some of the articles that I've read, there is some decomposition and also mummifications. And I believe the areas that they said were like the hands and the feet. And if you imagine, we don't really have a lot of water in those areas. So in my experience and what I've seen is those are the areas that begin to mummify the quickest.
This is so fascinating.
It really is.
I feel like I'm in a science class right now. Can you talk about, have you ever seen a case like this before? Have you been a part of investigating something like this?
Yes. I was a crime scene investigator for 23 years, and I unfortunately had a very similar case in which it was a family of 5, and they were inside a residence for, we estimate, probably about 3 to 3.5 weeks, and there were signs of mummification and decomposition.
And what was the cause of death?
That was going to be, it was determined to be basically drug overdose. So it was prescription medication.
Wow. Okay. Well, still investigating this one. So thank you for your expertise, Kimberlee Guluzian, for being with us this morning. We really appreciate all the information.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks.